Welcome to Reason and Theology. Your host, Michael, doing our second show for the day. Actually, I should say for the night, Saturday night here. Going to be doing one answering Eastern Orthodox objections, namely, why do we need a universal head? This was precipitated because of a show that I did yesterday, and Father John Whiteford asked a really good question. Father Whiteford, I've had him on the show many times, and I hope to have him on more. I think he's a great priest. I respect him tremendously. He is a very good and holy man, very knowledgeable Eastern Orthodox priest. So I've long admired his work, the way he conducts himself. So I've really appreciated him. And he asked this question. I thought it was definitely worth answering. I didn't get a chance to do so yesterday. He asked it in a live chat, and I wanted to devote a whole show to it because I think that it definitely deserves one. Now, I intend to answer it and then also go over a couple things from Ephesus and also the Acts of Lateran Synod 649, because I think it's very much related to the question. So again, why do we need a head? And just to be specific here, let me get Father Whiteford's question in front of me. He asks, if Christ is the head, why do we really need another head to not be headless? He's referring to the Eastern Orthodox, because I was mentioning the fact that, you do have synods and things like that in the Eastern Orthodox communion, but above the synods, there really isn't an authority. Now, we could talk about an ecumenical council, but then it's still going to just push the problem one step back further, and we're still going to have the question, okay, well, who's going to be the head of this thing, right? So we could still ask the question. And so it would still seem to be the case that Eastern Orthodoxy does at some point not have a head. And in fact, I watched a video recently where another Orthodox priest confirmed as much. He sees the ecclesiology of the Orthodox Church very much the way Cyprian sort of saw it, which was this pyramid, right? But that it doesn't actually have a pinnacle. It doesn't have a top. It stops at the top and kind of goes flat. So there is a little bit of a pyramid shape, but then it stops. Whereas for Catholics, it goes all the way up to the papacy. So, this generally isn't disputed for Orthodox. They don't have a problem admitting that there's definitely a sense in which they don't have a head. Now, others might say in a very qualified sense, the Patriarch of Constantinople, blah, blah, blah. I get it. I understand. That's being the practical aspect of that is being debated right now. So what does that mean? How is the Patriarch of Constantinople head? In what way? I think these are really important questions. So again, back to Father Whiteford's question, because my position effectively was that Orthodoxy is headless at the end of the day. And again, a lot of Orthodox don't have a problem admitting that. Though few may try to dispute it. Well, the first thing I would say is, more importantly than why would we need a head, I would ask the question, did Christ actually give us a visible head? That would be a better question. Not that it's wrong to ask the question that Father asked. It's a good question, but I would first ask, did Christ in fact give us one? If so, then it really is inconsequential why. The fact is he gave us one. I would first start there. But as to the question, well, let me ask this. The head of every family should be Christ. Every Christian should be able to say the head of my family is Christ. And yet, does not Scripture note that the head of the family is also the father? Is there somehow a contradiction here? Is the father the head of a family in the household to the exclusion of Christ? No. He's the visible manifestation of Christ's headship. And that's in fact why you see that analogy being made by St. Paul in the New Testament. So just because Christ is the head of something doesn't mean that that somehow excludes a visible head. Why would we need one? Well, okay. If Christ is the head of the local family, of each family, well, I guess we don't need to have a visible head, right? I mean, we don't need one. Christ is the head, so the father doesn't actually have to be a head, right? Well, we know that that doesn't work out in reality. Anybody who's a father knows that definitely doesn't work. So, um, anybody who's a husband, that doesn't work. There has to be somewhere where the buck stops in the household. It is what it is. It's a fact. Well, what about the local diocese? Is not Christ the head of every diocese? He better be. But don't the Orthodox also recognize that the bishop is the head of the diocese? Mhm. Is that somehow at the exclusion of Christ's headship? No. The local bishop should be the visible manifestation of Christ's headship, of the bishop, of the ultimate bishop of souls, Christ, the ultimate shepherd. So having a local bishop doesn't somehow negate the fact that Jesus is the head of that diocese too. And then we could ask the question, well, if Jesus is the head of every diocese, we don't need then a head, right? Why would we need one? We don't need one. All the priests can just kind of do their own thing. They just need to be united in when it comes to the sacraments and the liturgy and the faith, and they don't really have to have one of them who's a bishop who's ahead of them, right? Well, we know how that would work out. That would be a disaster. So that's why we have bishops. Okay. All right. So above that, what do we have? Well, we have synods, right? Okay. Well, isn't there a head of a synod? Hmm. There is a head to every synod. But why? Jesus is the head of every synod, right? Jesus is the head of the church. Why would you need the head of a head for every synod? Why don't we just have a headless synod? That also wouldn't work out very well. So we have heads for every synod. Okay, well, what do we do after the synod? What happens when two synods disagree with each other on fundamental aspects, such as the issue right now between Constantinople and Moscow? Well, we do need a head above than the synod, right? Well, no, because Jesus is the head of the universal church. Yeah, he is the head of the universal church, but we need a visible head for the universal church for the same reason why we needed a head for the synod, for the local diocese, for every local parish, for the household, right? Why would this be any different? Now, the point the point here, however, is that, well, I think it's a good question, but I don't think it's very consistent with Eastern Orthodox ecclesiology, because Orthodoxy already recognizes this concept of a visible manifestation of a head who is representing the headship of Christ. So if you have that on pretty much every level, all the way up to the synod, why wouldn't you have that for the universal church? Well, you would have it for the very same reasons why you have a head elsewhere. But the question still remains, is that what Christ gave us? I mean, it could be that Christ just gave us a headless universal church and he just serves as the head and there is no visible head. It's possible. It's possible. Some might affirm, well, there is a head of the universal church. Some Orthodox might even say that. They might not go for this truncated pyramid. They might say that there is something at the top. There is the first see. But then when you start asking them, well, what exactly can this first see do? Well, that is disputed. That's debated. And you start asking questions. Well, can this first see maybe resolve the conflict between the schism right now between Moscow and Constantinople? Not really. Okay. Well, what good is this thing? What good is this head at this point? When you really start asking the questions for those who would affirm a head for the Universal Church and the Orthodox Church. It's basically a head who has no power and can't really do anything. So, um, yeah, it's hard for me to then say, okay, well, this is really you admitting that there is a universal head. You can say that this person is the head of the church, and yet if they have absolutely no power to do anything, well, I think we have a problem. Now, again, the question is, did Christ in fact give us a head? I want to read something from Stephen of Dore at Lateran 649. Listen to what he says. And for this cause, sometimes we asked for water to our head, and to our eyes a fountain of tears, sometimes the wings of a dove, according to to holy David, that we might fly away and announce these things to to the chair which rules and presides over all. I mean to yours, the head and the highest, talking about Rome, for the healing of the whole wound. For this it has been accustomed to from old and from the beginning with power by its canonical and apostolical authority. Did you hear that? Not just canonical, apostolical authority. Because the truly great Peter, head of the apostles, was clearly thought worthy not only to be entrusted with the keys of heaven alone apart from the rest, to open it worthily to believers, or to close it justly to those who disbelieve the gospel of grace, but because he was also first commissioned to feed the sheep of the whole Catholic Church. For Peter, said he, do you love me? Feed my sheep. And again, because he had in a manner peculiar and special a faith in the Lord, stronger than all and unchangeable, to be converted and to confirm his fellows and spiritual brethren when tossed about, as having been adorned by God himself, incarnate for us, with power and sacerdotal authority. I was urged by the requests of almost all the pious bishops of the East in agreement with the departed Sophronius. Without delay, I made this journey for this purpose alone. And since then, thrice have I run to your apostolic feet, urging and beseeching the prayer of Sophronius and of all that is, that you will assist the imperiled faith of Christians. We'll probably do a whole lot on the Lateran Synod, but for now, suffice it to say he does note the head of the apostles is Peter, and he notes that that headship is seen in the Bishop of Rome, and it's even something affirmed by the Eastern bishops being sent here, Stephen of Dore being sent on their behalf, and affirming this expression, affirming the headship of the papacy over the universal church, especially in a time of crisis, doctrinal crisis, with the monothelite controversy. So it's really interesting to see this being noted here. You also see Philip the Legate, which I've brought up many times. Let me go to it. Philip the Legate at Ephesus. One second. I think this is it. One moment. There we go. Here's Philip the Legate at the Council of Ephesus. This is at session 2. We offer our thanks to the Holy and Venerable Synod, that when the writings of our holy and blessed Pope had been read to you, you joined yourselves to the holy, also by your holy acclamations, the holy head. For blessedness is not ignorant that the for your blessedness is not ignorant that the head of the whole faith, the head of the apostles, is blessed Peter the apostle. But he says you join yourselves to the holy head, also by your holy acclamations. So here he's noting that the Pope is the head, and he's connecting it with Peter, the head of the apostles. He's making that connection. This is being said right there at the Council of Ephesus. This is what also Saint Optatus says. You cannot deny then that you do know that Peter first in the city of Rome was bestowed the episcopal cathedra on which sat Peter, the head of all the apostles, for which reason he was also called Cephas, that in this one cathedra unity should be preserved by all, lest the other apostles might also claim each for himself separate cathedrals, so that he who should set up a second cathedra against the unique cathedra would already be a schismatic and a sinner. Well, then, on the one cathedra, which is the first of the endowments, Peter was the first to sit. And so he's again noting here the headship of Rome and connecting it to the headship of Peter, the head of the apostles. And why would there need to be a head? So that there would be one cathedra and not a whole bunch of cathedrals out there fighting against each other, which is effectively what we have in Orthodoxy. So I would say, and there's a lot more data in the first millennium that would attest to this, but I would say that um, the fathers, not every single father or anything, but quite a few of the fathers would attest to Peter being head, that Rome has this unique sense in which it is mirroring the way that Peter is head of the College of Apostles. So too, Rome is head of the College of Bishops. Concept is going to be there, and that this was not something just by some canon, but was a divine institution. They're going to connect it to Matthew 16. That's something from our Lord. That wasn't by canons or because a city was important or something like that. Those things might be helpful in developing the seed that Christ planted, but the fact that Christ planted the seed is hard to deny. So I would say this is why we need a visible head. Well, for the same reason Optatus is saying, if you don't have a cathedra that is going to be the head of these other cathedrals, well, you're going to have problems. And you're ultimately not going to be able to solve doctrinal disputes, disciplinary disputes, and so on. And that's effectively what we see in Orthodoxy. So I hope this has been helpful in answering Orthodoxy. Let me see if I can find some questions in the chat. Make sure to send them to @Reason and Theology. Let's see. Somebody said, "When Michael looks into the camera, I'm strangely inclined to believe whatever he says." That's funny. What else do we have in here? Make sure to send it @Reason and Theology so I could pick it out from the comments. Thank you, Patrick J. I see the super chat there. He says, "Keep up the good work." I appreciate that. Let's see. Is there anything else there in the chat? I haven't been able to look at it yet, so I'm looking. Seeing some comments, but not any questions yet, and that's okay. If there aren't any questions, kill the stream here in a little bit. I knew it would be relatively short one, but I wanted to be able to sneak it in. Let me at least see what the schedule has so that y'all know what shows we have coming up. Let's see. We currently have Pat Flynn and also, let's see. Let me go to it. There it is. Yeah, Pat Flynn. I'm going to be going on his show. That's going to be June 1st. We're going to be talking about Vatican II. Let's see. We have Dr. I hope I pronounce it right. Chirico, Conversation on the Papacy. He is a Protestant. Dr. Meinert on the 4th, who's going to be continuing with his lectures. What else do I see here? Hopefully Bishop Strickland on the 10th. No, he had an emergency last time, so we're having to reschedule here. Looks like Keith Nestor going on his show on the 8th. And Father Deacon Dragani is going to be talking about the diaconate on the 16th. So we got some shows coming up here. I forgot to mention on the 6th, we have an Israeli-Palestinian conflict discussion. with Rudy Roshman and also Abuna Elias, who is the former bishop of Nazareth and Galilee. Um, he'll be coming on with Rudy to do a discussion on that particular topic on the Israeli Palestinian conflict and how to heal it. So I think that's going to be fun. Um, Lorelei asked, what would Father Deacon say about having no single head to Eastern Orthodoxy? Um, Father Deacon, are you referring to Father Deacon Dragani? I don't know. I think it'd be good to talk to him. Somebody said, are you in good standing with Jay Dyer? Well, I guess you don't know of all the drama he's caused. I saw he was recently talking about me again. Somebody sent me a screenshot because I'm blocked, but um, it seems he was still talking about me, and he was. It was odd. It was as if he was responding to me, who was talking about him, and I haven't mentioned anything about him, so I don't know what he was referring to, but um, no, I mean, on his end, he's not in good standing with me. Now he'll try to say I'm not in good standing with him, but um, without rehashing all of the details, um, I have a whole lot of people that I've had on the show, almost 140 guests. The vast majority of them, I don't have any issues with. Why is that? Well, because I can generally get along well with others. There have been a few, maybe about 5, 6 people that have been problematic. And they tend to be people that they have a lot of disputes with other people as well. So I would let that speak for itself. I think my record speaks for itself. I'm not generally quarrelsome. I don't start problems. I generally try to have peace with people. But some people don't want peace; they want to start problems, and that's exactly what Jay Dyer did. Um, I was trying to be on good terms with him, but he contacts me one day while I'm taking care of my son, and I'm in absolutely no position to be able to get on the computer at the time. Um, and he was saying, unless you come on my Discord and debate me, you're a coward. And it was just weird. It was out of nowhere. I have my son right now. There's absolutely zero way that I could even possibly get on a show right now while taking care of a baby. Um, and so what am I supposed to do? Just hold him and then so it was absolutely impossible, and he kept egging me on. Oh well, you just don't know what you're talking about. You're just scared, bro. You're a coward, bro, and just started treating me really poorly, and it was absurd. And he started treating me the way that he treats others. And I wasn't going for it, and I just completely declined and didn't have anything to do with it. And ever since then, he's just aggravated the situation more and more and more, digging a hole deeper and deeper and deeper. So he's not in good standing with me. Now, if he would like to apologize for the nasty things that he said about me, about my children, because I have seen him say things about my children. If he wants to apologize for the nasty things he said about me personally, about my family, um, then I'll of course, give forgiveness. Um, Christ tells us to do that 70 times 7. I have no problem forgiving anybody who's ever done wrong to me because I need forgiveness for the wrong that I've done to other people. Um, we definitely all fail. We definitely all sin, and we're all in need of forgiveness. So I would never withhold forgiveness from anybody, no matter how grievous their acts are. Um, Odds are I've done worse in my lifetime than they have. So if I'm going to be forgiven by God, I have to forgive that other person. So I definitely am willing to be in good standing with him and forgive him, but I don't think that he is. I don't think he's at a point where he recognizes that he has a problem. Um, but maybe in the future he'll come around, and yeah, I would definitely forgive him and others who have behaved very similarly. But yeah, without having to go into all the details behind it, because there's a whole long history behind it, we'll just leave it there. Let's see. When were those writings from? Well, Council of Ephesus is 431, right? Um, Lateran Synod, 649. Optatus, well, he's going to be right around the time, a little bit before Augustine, so 4th century, I believe. Yeah, right around there, dealing with the Donatists. That would be then late 4th, actually probably 5th century then. Sorry, I don't have his exact dates offhand. So I mean, right around that era. How was chatting with the Assyrian priest? Um, you said I found his theology tended in a direction I couldn't follow at times. Yeah, I enjoyed talking to him. I thought he was a really enjoyable person to have a discussion with. I look forward to having him on again. His some of his positions I definitely don't agree with. I heard some things that he definitely had some misunderstandings of Catholicism. And also I think he maintained some things that weren't tenable. His understanding of the canon, for example. I think some of his views concerning the law tended towards a position that I also think is untenable. So there were some things that I definitely didn't agree with, but it's an interview. You don't just hijack an interview, start debating the guy and all that. I'm not going to do that. You'll lose respect. I mean, your guests, you'll make them lose respect for you immediately, and I don't want that. I want to be able to have a genuine conversation with people, so I don't want to lose their respect. If I then tell them, hey, let's have a round table or a debate on this, that's fine. But if I have somebody on for an interview, you don't just automatically just start turning it into a debate. They're going to feel like you're hijacking the interview, or they're going to feel like you're ambushing them. So I tend to keep my opinions during an interview to myself. You'll notice a couple times I did give it just a little bit of a pushback in the form of questions, but um, I definitely wanted to give him the floor and let him give his views and all that. But there was definitely some points I didn't agree with. What else do we have? Let me look through the chat. What happened to the morning shows? Yeah, I need to get back to them. I apologize. What else? I'm looking through them. Okay. Still looking through. Let's see. I saw something about Blockbuster on there. In light of the recent videos that we did, I thought it was about that. I thought I saw a question. Where did it go? Well, somebody says you need to respond to Jay Dyer like that old country buffet guy. All right. Yeah, that's basically what I do. I don't take him seriously. I've dealt with actual real life problems with real people. People behind a keyboard is a joke. It's a joke. And the funny thing is, a lot of these people who run their mouth constantly wouldn't ever say that in person. They do that behind the comfort of their keyboard, but they would not do that in person. And so, if you wouldn't say it in person, don't say it behind a keyboard. That's kind of my policy. Um, and again, I can't take it. I can't take it seriously. I've had to deal with real life people. Prior to my uh, coming to Christianity, I've had actual real life murderers after me. I've had to deal with real world problems not this virtual internet war that so many people want to get involved with. I can't take it seriously. It's if it weren't sad and for the fact that people are sinning when they're doing the act, it would be just funny. But it is kind of sad at the same time because these people are engaging in sin in what they're doing. But again, that's why I'm not taking any of it seriously. I ignore those people, just move on. And I think that if you see a person acting that way, it's best to just not support their content. I mean, if that's the kind of stuff that they're putting out there, you have to ask how honest are they going to be with sources that might disagree with them. Um, Probably not very honest in handling sources. If they can't conduct themselves well with somebody they don't agree with, they're probably not going to handle sources that they don't agree with very accurately. They're probably going to twist those things and try to make it uh you know line up with their perspective, so they probably won't be very reliable people to go to when it comes to matters of theology. So again, I can't take these internet wars seriously. It's ridiculous. When am I going to have Pastor Wolfmueller back on? He's supposed to be. Um, let's see. He is coming back on the 15th. 15th. I'm trying to see if I made a note. I'd have to go back and look at the email on what we're going to have a discussion on. Opinion on the forgery argument. Well, I mean, depending on what document, right? But there are forgeries, both sides, right? Go and read, of course, about the Council of Florence. Go and read about the issue with Photius. We'll see that. But of course, none of these issues ultimately are going to invalidate the Catholic perspective. Any kind of material that you would show to be a forgery, there's still plenty of other sources out there that aren't forgeries. So I don't think it's going to be a defeater. Somebody says, Michael, you need any backup, let us know. That's funny. What do you say to somebody who's Orthodox that you want to convert to Catholicism but state you will know them by their fruit? Right. Well, I could of course say that about the Orthodox and show them the fruits of Orthodoxy, right? I mean, there's a lot of bad fruits there too. There's some good fruits in Orthodoxy as well. There's also some bad fruits. Likewise, for Catholicism, there's some good fruits and there's some bad fruits. We could use that argument, and it's ultimately not going to prove or disprove Catholicism or Eastern Orthodoxy. So I think we need a better criteria than the "you will know them by their fruits" argument when it comes to judging this particular matter. Um, Let me see. What else do we have? Looking through the chat. Keyboard warriors. Yeah, that's what I call them, keyboard warriors. But then in person, they would be a wet noodle. Um, Thoughts on synodality? Yeah, you know what? um, Look, synodality in and of itself is not a bad thing. Whether or not that's really what is being referred, whether what synods are in the first millennium compared to what's going to be taking place soon is the same thing. That we could have that discussion, but synodality in and of itself, there's nothing wrong with it, right? That's definitely part of our patrimony, and I think that there's definitely a sense in which we need to get back to that instead of having the papacy micromanaging everything. Um, at the same time, it needs to be done well and done right, and the papacy does need to be able to um, manage a synod if it goes too far, right? If it goes astray. What else do we have? Can I look into the Jesus hoax? I've never heard of it, but I'll definitely check it out. I don't know what that is. You'll have to enlighten me on what this is. Recent theology instead of the never-ending story, the never-ending synod on synodality. I used to love that movie when I was a kid. I watched it over and over in Israel. uh, anyways, yeah. Hmm. Okay. Make Episcopal conferences infallible. You actually can't relegate infallibility to Episcopal conferences. Now, Episcopal conferences do have magisterial authority in some cases. If the vote is 2/3 in favor of something, it's then sent to Rome, and if Rome approves it, then it becomes magisterial. Um, if the Episcopal Conference unanimously agrees on something, it becomes magisterial. Now, of course, magisterial in that territory. That should be noted. Now, if the Pope, of course, approves it, that's a little different. It would apply elsewhere. But I'm just saying, if just the Episcopal Conference unanimously approves something, it would be magisterial for the people in those dioceses. But infallibility could never be relegated to an Episcopal Conference, because an Episcopal Conference is not an ecumenical council, so I can't exercise conciliar infallibility, and the Pope cannot delegate his personal papal infallibility to any others. That's why the Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith and things like that, when they teach, even when it's approved by the Pope, they're not infallible, because he can't, you know, nobody can vicariously exercise papal infallibility. That's impossible. He has to personally exercise it. Do I think anything interesting ecclesially will come from the synod on synodality? Probably not. Probably not. Should something good come from it? I would hope, but I doubt a whole lot of anything would come from it, just by the track record. Um, let's see. When is the next comedy hour? I don't know. Maybe we can do one tomorrow. We'll see. Any suggestions for first timers visiting Israel? Man, I want to go back too. So, suggestions. I never went as a visitor, so I don't know what that's like. As kind of a tourist thing. I don't know. You definitely want to go to Jerusalem. That's my only suggestion, because again, I lived there, so it's a little different. But um, yeah, I would definitely start in Jerusalem. Go to the Wailing Wall, go to the Temple Mount, all those places. Um, let's see. Thoughts on the ortho polemics against Saint Josaphat? Offhand, I don't recall what the polemics are. You'll have to refresh my memory there. It sounds vaguely familiar. Orthodox are bigger on synods. Yeah, yeah, and I think that we should be too. I think that we should have more synodality involved. And I think we definitely need to return to that, but at the same time recognize that the papacy has its role and its function as well. Um, do you hold the opinion that the apostles were able to define dogma on their own like the Pope can now? I think Gasser held this view. Yeah, not only could they define dogma on their own, they were giving new revelation. So, um, that's a step up from defining a dogma, right? Um, a dogma is just recognizing what is a definitive declaration on part of the church that something is part of the um that is divinely revealed, right? That is it's something that God has revealed. Well, they're not only telling you what is divinely determining what has been divinely revealed, they're actually giving new revelation. So that's a step up from that. So if they're at the step up, they can do everything below that. Um, go see if they replace the ladder Michael stole. I get the inside joke there. That's funny. No, I got that at what's that place called? Hobby Lobby. Yeah. That's where I got that from. It didn't come from Israel. Lyndon says blasphemous lies. I don't know. What did I say that was blasphemous or a lie? I don't know. Um, oh, okay. Calling Saint Josephat the stealer of souls and literally Hitler who forced Orthodox into reunion on pain of death. Huh? I guess this one I don't know. You got me on that. You stumped Michael for the day. Offhand, this does not sound familiar now. I don't know about that one. You got me. I'll have to look further into that. Uh, the moment I can start taking it seriously, I'll look into it further. um, Orthodoxy doesn't get as much bad press, but what would be bad fruit in Orthodoxy compared to the child abuse scandals and liturgical abuses? Well, of course, you have the same thing there in Orthodoxy. You do have child abuse scandals and liturgical abuses and money scandals and things like that. So all of the sins that you can find in Catholicism, the Orthodox are not immune to that. Why would the Orthodox be immune to any sin that's out there? There's nothing protecting Eastern Orthodoxy from sin that, you know, there isn't the same kind of protection elsewhere because people have free will, right? So they're able to choose to commit sins. So you're going to find that elsewhere as well. You'll find it in Orthodoxy, in Catholicism, Protestantism, wherever you go. It might be more prevalent in some places than others. I also think that Orthodoxy is smaller, so you don't see it as much. Um, but yeah, I think you're going to find those problems in different places as well. So I don't think that that is the best argument to determine which communion has preserved the faith the best. I would say that there are some things that Orthodoxy has done really well at preserving, and there's some things that Orthodoxy has not done well at preserving. We could say the same thing about us. Question now is, has Eastern Orthodoxy preserved everything that it should have preserved substantially? And I would say no. It has not preserved some things that are substantially part of what was handed down to us from Christ and the apostles. Whereas I would say we have preserved those aspects, those elements. Is there anything else in the chat? I've seen a versus populum Orthodox liturgy before, but my parish only does it once a year. I thought the liturgy of St. James was versus populum. Am I mistaken there? Somebody correct me on that. Let's see. Somebody says Taylor Marshall is much maligned on here. I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm gonna block that user since they're now not accurately representing this channel. Let's see. Anything else in the chat? Somebody asks, is this in response to Father John Whiteford? Yes. Look at the show notes, the description. Not seeing anything else. So, somebody says, I think liturgy of St. James is versus populum and is only celebrated on occasions in the Eastern churches. I thought it was done versus populum, and I know it's only done a few times in the year by some Eastern Orthodox priests. What percentage of U.S. bishops are corrupt theologically? I don't know. I haven't looked into the percentage. I don't know. Thanks to you, I'm sure many are in a hard place. How do we revert? I don't get the question. Are you saying that people who are Eastern Orthodox are looking into Catholicism due to what I'm saying and asking me how to revert? Harvey asked the question, so maybe if you can clarify for me the question, I'm not sure I follow. So maybe if you can just add a clarification there. So you're saying yes. Okay. So in other words, people who are currently Eastern Orthodox who left from Catholicism to Eastern Orthodoxy, they're considering reverting because of what some of the content on the show. How do you revert? Well, it's actually extremely easy to revert as far as just the process, but I would not make any quick changes unless you, un, let me say this. Um, if you are going to revert because you truly believe that Christ established the Catholic Church and that it has preserved what he has established substantially, and that other communions have not, and that the Catholic Church, um, yeah, let's just leave it at that. Make sure you're at that point that you really believe that. If you don't, I don't know if you're really ready yet. I mean, I'm happy that you would come back, but you need to believe the right thing when you're here. Um, so just kind of make sure that you are there and you have reasons to believe that. But how would you revert? It's actually very easy. You would just go to a Catholic priest in the confessional and confess your sin, having gone to another communion. They will absolve you of your sins, and that will also include any lifting of canonical penalties. So. And in fact, if you go to a Latin Mass priest, you'll even hear in the absolution, they'll mention the lifting of any canonical penalties generally. So let's see. You should do a response to Steve Skojic's article that supposedly maligned his priest as well as spouting despair. I haven't read all of it. I read a little bit of it, and from what I read, I can totally understand what he was going through. Again, I haven't read all of it, but I could completely relate to what he was going through as far as treatment from some priests. I have some horror stories. I get it. I understand. I totally get it. Um, Ultimately, I don't believe those are things to leave the Catholic Church. I do believe that you'll have some of those same problems elsewhere. I don't believe that um, this somehow disproves Catholicism. It also doesn't prove it, right? There are other reasons to believe why the Catholic Church is right. It definitely doesn't help the reputation of the Catholic Church, but I don't think it destroys our claims. But I can completely, from what I read, I can completely understand what he was going through and the frustration that he had. I was there around 2017 ish, somewhere around there. I totally get that frustration, that hurt. I understand. It goes away after a while, and you get to the point where that hurt and that pain goes away, and you can kind of look at the situation more objectively when it comes to considering the matter of whether the Catholic Church is the true church or not. Considering that question, you can kind of look at it more objectively when that pain has kind of subsided and is not overriding your intellect. Now, I'm not saying it is overriding in his case. I'm just saying people who are struggling with being hurt sometimes will say, well, the Catholic Church isn't established by Christ, therefore I'm leaving, I'm going elsewhere. So I'm talking about those people who leave and go elsewhere. Um, Sometimes you just kind of have to wait for that pain to die out with that person before you can really have a conversation with them about this issue. But once the pain kind of dies out, then you can kind of talk to them about the faith and look at the issues a little bit more objectively. um let's see. I'm looking through the chat here. Let's see. What exactly do you have to profess? um Was that a question for me or somebody else? Was that for Grant Michael or me? Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that was a question for somebody else. I'm looking. Harvey says RNT, no pressure, only salvation at stake. Well, again, I would only tell the person to come back to the Catholic Church once they are convicted that it is truly established by Christ. But at that point, you really don't have any other choice, do you? If you truly believe the Catholic Church was established by Christ and you remain separated from it, you're saying, I know that Christ established this, but I'm remaining separated from it for this or that reason. I can't think of any reason to be separated from what Christ established, right? So if you come to actually believe that, you have no other choice but to come back into full communion. To not come into full communion at that point would be to put your soul in danger, as Vatican II notes. He who knows the church was established by Christ, if they fail to join it or remain in it, cannot be saved. It's very clear. Vatican's is very clear that person cannot be saved. You don't have any other choice once you believe it's established by Christ. But if you're thinking about reverting and you don't know if you believe that, well, I don't know if you're ready to come back to the church because you'd be coming to a church that you don't really believe in. I'm not sure that's helpful. That might just be causing more problems. Um, so just kind of make sure that you're ready and that you believe that, and then at that point, yes, go to a local priest, go to confession, and you should be good to go. If you had already been Catholic before, I'm saying. Now, if you had never been Catholic and you're talking about leaving Orthodoxy to come to Catholicism, but you had never been Catholic before, so it's not a reversion, it's just now a conversion. You would need to confess your sins, and there would also generally be a profession that you would need to make. So you just go and talk to your local priest, and they'll tell you about it. It's not hard. You don't have to get any new sacraments or anything like that, because presumably you've already received those in Orthodoxy. Okay. When you converted, did you feel pressure to try to convert friends and family? Yeah, yeah, I did. Um, but some it's kind of hard to do. Sometimes you just have to um, live your faith out and let that speak for itself, especially when it comes to family. It's hard converting family because your family knows all your faults. And so it's the same thing with Jesus, right? Jesus goes and preaches everywhere and people took him seriously. But when he goes back to the place where he was born, they didn't want to take him seriously because they know him. I knew you, Jesus. I grew up with you and that kind of stuff. And so that's why he talks about a prophet is not without honor except in his own home. It's harder converting family for that reason because they know all your faults, and so and they think, well, I've seen you since day one, I've known you since a baby or whatever, and here you are now, you're going to tell me about the meaning of life and all that. So sometimes that's a little bit of a barrier. So um, so Harvey says, I agree. I just need to convince those who are, don't listen to your channel. Yeah, I mean, if I understand your point correctly, hey, maybe share with them some of the content where we've gone over the papacy and the arguments for the papacy. That might be good stuff to start with as far as sharing content. Um, are Protestants and Orthodox considered part of the invisible church Trent Horn talks about, or is it just separation, plain and simple? Well, um, there when it comes to the Orthodoxy, they might have valid sacraments, but they're still at least materially in schism, and some of them are formally in schism. Um, some of them are only materially in schism because their bishop is separated from the Bishop of Rome. So there is an element of schism there, but they don't intend to be separated. There's no form to it. They're not intending to be separated from something instituted by Christ, right? So they wouldn't be formal schismatics in that case. But then some Orthodox know, and they still pride themselves on not being in communion with the papacy, and they've known enough to know about the truth about the papacy. So, and maybe in those cases, they might be considered, God only knows, might be a formal schismatic, which in that point, they couldn't be saved. If they remain in that condition, they cannot be saved. So just because you're Orthodox doesn't mean you are automatically saved. It also doesn't mean you're automatically damned either. Same thing for Protestants, but it's even more difficult for Protestants because now they don't have some of the important sacraments, right? So it's even more difficult for the Protestants than it would be for the Orthodox. Okay, hope that helps. Will Fra Charles and Dr. Goff be back on? Definitely would love to have them back on. Um, are you the only Catholic among your extended family? Yes, I am. Uh, what else? I'm looking. Any plans to do a show on Gregory of Narek? I think that would be fun. Could probably do that. Any content on the historicity of the Gospels and the New Testament? We've actually done some shows, several, where we've talked about it during some of the textual criticism shows. Yeah, maybe go and check those out. Hmm. Well, if the Oriental Orthodox and Eastern Orthodox came into communion, what would they do about the fact that each of them have their own patriarchs for sees like Alexandria? Yeah, I imagine that if they were able to somehow retain those, which would be kind of awkward, but it wouldn't be too different than actually maybe an Eastern Catholic bishop and a Latin Rite bishop who kind of have the same territory, but they have different rights. I think you can maybe put it that way. So you can maybe say the Ethiopian Patriarch of Alexandria and the Byzantine Patriarch of Alexandria. You can maybe do it that way. And as long as they're in communion with the Pope, there's ultimately going to be somebody who's able to arbitrate between any issues. So I think maybe that would be probably the way that would be handled. Okay. Well, I don't see any others, and I guess we'll leave it at that. And I do intend to do one probably tomorrow, if not the next day, on St. Augustine and his work against the Donatists on baptism, talking about grace available for those outside of the formal boundaries of the Catholic Church, grace from schismatic churches. Really interesting stuff. Going to be going over that. So I hope this was helpful as far as the content for y'all and responding to Eastern Orthodox objections. Please let me know your thoughts in the chat whenever this posts on Facebook. Of course, don't forget to like, subscribe, and then, of course, hit the bell for notification. And check us out, patreon.com/reason and theology if you want to support us. And you also get access to extra content. So definitely check that out. All right, that'll do it. Till next time. God bless you all.